work energy theorem. Let's go ahead and take a look. So by definition, the work energy theorem states as follows. The work done on an object by a net force is equal to the change in the object's kinetic energy. The work done by a net force on an object, the net work, is equals to the object's change in its kinetic energy, right? The change in kinetic energy being kinetic energy final minus kinetic energy initial. We can actually derive this equation so that you can see how it comes about. But essentially, this is what the work energy theorem is saying. If there is some work that has been done on an object by a net force, you can take a look at the object's change in kinetic energy, and that will give you the net work done on the object by the net force. Okay, so let me show you how it comes about. Initially, we agreed that work net is equals to F net multiplied by delta x multiplied by cos of theta. So take a look at this. If the net force is in the same direction as the displacement of the object, then we're going to have cos of 0, which is 1. So we end up with F net multiplied by delta x. From Newton's second law, we know fully well that F net is just m multiplied by the acceleration multiplied by delta x. So let's see how we can go from this equation to the net work done on an object being equals to the object's change in its kinetic energy. Let's concentrate on this A delta x. We just need one more equation and we would have proved this theorem. Okay, from equations of motions, we know fully well that Vf squared is equals to Vi squared plus 2A delta x. Well, this is if we look at the horizontal axis. If we look at the vertical axis, obviously it's going to be delta y. But take a look at this. If we rearrange, we get Vf squared minus Vi squared being equals to 2A delta x. We're interested in A delta x. So what we will do here is to divide both sides by 2. So we're going to have A delta x being equals to Vf squared divided by 2 minus Vi squared divided by 2. This is what we're going to substitute into this equation right here. If we go ahead and do that, let me just do it on the side. We're going to have the net work being equals to m multiplied by, in place of A delta x, we're going to have Vf squared divided by 2 minus Vi squared divided by 2. Multiply it out, we get a half mvf squared minus a half mvi squared. And this is the work energy theorem. So in different cases, you might have to use this work energy theorem. If you're interested in the final velocity after this net work done on an object, you can always run to the work energy theorem. Right, let's go ahead and take a look at conservative and non-conservative forces. So there we go. By definition, a conservative force is a force for which the work done in moving an object between 2 points is independent of the path taken. Let me remind you, when I was showing you different ways of calculating the work done by gravity, I did mention this, that whether you take the incline or you take the height, the work done by gravity is going to be the same because gravity is a conservative force. It is a force in which the work done in moving an object between 2 points is independent of the path taken, right? We have gravitational force as an example, elastic force in a spring, and electrostatic forces. But in work energy and power, we mainly concentrate on the gravitational force. So gravitational force is the conservative force that we're going to be paying most of our attention to. So the work done by these conservative force or by conservative forces is equals to minus the change in the object's potential energy. is equals to the change in the object's potential energy. We can also derive this, but for the sake of time, let's just agree that the work done by conservative forces is equals to the object's change in its potential energy, not the net work, right? The work done by conservative forces is equals to the object's change in its kinetic energy. So that is conservative force. Let's go ahead and take a look at non-conservative force. A non-conservative force is a force in which the work done in moving an object between 2 points depends on the path taken, right? In a conservative force, is independent of the path taken, and in a non-conservative force is dependent on the path taken. That is the work done in moving an object between 2 points. For example, frictional force, air resistance, tension in a cord, so on and so on. We also have an equation for that. The work done by non-conservative forces is equals to the change in the object's potential energy plus the change in the object's kinetic energy. There's just one last thing I want to show you before we look at examples where we apply these theorems. So take a look at this. The principle of conservation of mechanical energy. This is grade 10 work. It says that the total mechanical energy in an isolated system remains constant. The total mechanical energy in an isolated system remains constant. What does that mean? All right. So we know that the work done by non-conservative forces is equal to the object's change in its potential energy plus the object's change in its kinetic energy. But if our system is isolated, then the work done by non-conservative forces is 0. We end up having 0 is equals to the change in the object's potential energy plus the change in the object's kinetic energy. But the change in the object's potential energy is potential energy final minus potential energy initial, right? Let's put this in one bracket, plus kinetic energy final minus kinetic energy initial. But I'm going to take the initial potential energy and the initial kinetic energy to the left hand side. If I do that, we're going to have the initial potential energy plus the initial kinetic energy being equals to the final potential energy plus the final kinetic energy. This is what we refer to as the conservation of mechanical energy. The total mechanical energy at point A is equals to the total mechanical energy at point B. We've went through a couple of things, so let's just go ahead and reflect on that. We say that work net is equals to F net multiplied by delta X multiplied by cos of theta, right? And then we also see that we can calculate the work done by the individual forces. Work 1 plus work 2 plus work 3, so on and so on. All right, and then comes in our theorems. We talked about the work energy theorem, of which we said that the net work done on an object is equals to the object's change in its kinetic energy. And then the work done by non-conservative forces, the change in its potential energy plus the change in its kinetic energy. And lastly, the conservation of mechanical energy. So the mechanical energy at point A is equals to the mechanical energy at point B. We know that the mechanical energy is just the potential energy plus the kinetic energy. So these equations that we have here, we refer to them as the energy principles. Energy principles. If you come across a equation and it says calculate X, Y, Z, whatever you can be asked to calculate, and it says use energy principle, you're supposed to use one of these three equations. But just a tip, use this equation if you have an object that is in free fall, right? If the only force acting on the object is weight, feel free to use this equation. But if that's not the case, I would advise that you use 1, 2. You use those two equations at the top. But only in a situation where we have only weight acting on the object, then you can use the conservation of mechanical energy. Technically, you can use it when that is not the case, but it just gets a bit more complicated. So I highly advise that you only use it when there's only weight acting on the object. What I've seen, for the most part, where this equation works, this equation can also work, right? When we solve some problems, I'm going to solve the equation using both equation 1 and 2, just to show you that they all work. So, right, that is that. Let's go ahead and take a look at a few examples where we're going to use these energy principles.